Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. So I'm fixing up a little breakfast, and I just got through watching a larger excerpt of the Dan Patrick, Scottie Pippen interview. It was about maybe 15 minutes, maybe 10-minute clip of it, and I saw a little more of what Scottie was talking about, and just wanted to kind of further along my opinion in regards to what I'm seeing. I said in a video previously in regards to the situation that I felt that Scottie was kind of uh, processing some very difficult pain because he had went through a very personal pain very recently. He lost his son, and when a man goes through something like that, it becomes a situation where trying to manage that can sometimes be overwhelming, to say the least. And it takes some time for people to come back around and start operating the way that they normally do, depending on to what they're going through. And sometimes in those situations, uh, you might have something happen where somebody may trigger you, and suddenly you're trying to deal with everything you got going on. All of a sudden, this takes your attention and centers your pain into one place that you can focus it, somewhere that you can kind of manage it, and you could kind of turn it into maybe anger, or turn it into I don't care, or turn it into I'm gonna tear shit up, and it allows you some type of way to funnel all of those emotions, those feelings, and that pain into something. I feel that from Scottie. I don't know to what degree. Obviously, you need context to know exactly what's going on there. I know he's trying to sell a book, so it might be a combination of a lot of things coming together very perfectly. But with that going on, you got the book on one hand, you got the Michael Jordan doc on another hand, which is a revelation to me to a degree. He mentioned in that clip that one of the plays that were being run up at the end of a very important game was actually a play written up for Michael Jordan, despite on camera the coaches being in the huddle and talking about the play going somewhere else. So Scottie kind of revealed to us the understanding that a lot of what we saw was a play toward building up Michael Jordan's legacy, and kind of making sure that all the docs and all of his commercials and everything that needed to have that type of footage were on hand in real time, and some of the stuff that we saw was for that rather than authentic and the actual plays that they were running, which is only semi-surprising to me, to be honest with you, because when you look at the conglomerate that was Michael Jordan at that time, the mystique that was Michael Jordan at that time, it was big business, and you could see it was projecting to be even bigger business. And given where it is, it's no happenstance. It was no mistakes made. Everything was calculated in order for him to be as successful as he is. It was an entire team, very, very heavily funded behind Michael Jordan, and it was an unprecedented thing at the time. They were setting the path for how this type of stardom was. The league had recovered from the days of struggling right before Larry Bird and Magic Johnson had gotten there. They had two superstars, and this was the third one, who was the biggest one of them all. Yes, they were going to build docs around him in real time. They knew they wanted to film a documentary that wouldn't be shown for another 15, 20 years. They knew that then, of course. So, of course, you have situations such as those that Scottie's referring to. So I'm not as surprised as maybe some may have been. But to be honest with you, that was a heck of a revelation, because it did speak to the authenticity of what it is that we were seeing as it pertains to the Bulls, and maybe even create some questions about what it is that we're seeing in regards to other teams as well. So that's what Scottie let us in on. It kind of got to look behind the curtain. I felt like that was very important to talk about. So, look, this is what's going on in my opinion. Scottie's getting at people that he's always had issues with, that he's always kept his cool about. Scottie's always been the kind of guy that plays ball, no pun intended, but he just kind of seems like he's not going to speak on too much. He's not speaking too much on his struggles, even though they seem to be always rising to the forefront of the media, particularly what was going on with his marriage. And then you got all this going on with the documentary, where I thought maybe he might have been optimistic that they would have at least not highlighted some of the things that happened when Michael Jordan wasn't there, particularly things that may not have made him look the best things that we don't have full context on. I saw it and found myself cringing a little bit at times when they were mentioning Scottie, because the way that they painted him out was, even though he was a fantastic co-star to Michael Jordan, and they mentioned that they couldn't win without him, and they mentioned that he did have some success with the 2 years that Mike wasn't there. What they also did was highlight his contractual situation, which wasn't favorable and had it looking like other things. They highlighted his concerns with Tony Kukoc and revealed to us exactly how uncomfortable that was to him, and how he looked at it, and maybe how he didn't paint himself in the greatest light during that time. They pointed out some other things as well, particularly him not coming back into the game in the situation where he chose to kind of stay out when a play wasn't called his way. I felt like that's a tough thing, because, like I said, you need context. What brings a man to a threshold to where he would allow himself to just say, you know what, forget it, I'm not coming in the game? I would have to think there would have to be extreme circumstances, or he would have to be feeling something extreme. And judging by how he's behaving right now, I'm willing to believe that Scottie has always had a certain level of extreme to his behavior. You don't see too many people not come back into a game, especially someone of that caliber in that situation. Something had to be extreme, whether it be him or the circumstance. So this is on brand, unfortunately. Subtle, extreme. That's what the energy is, because Scottie don't do this all the time. He's a guy that you see on ESPN. You know what I mean? As recently as last year, he would be doing segments on ESPN regularly. And this is somebody who you used to kind of seen on TV now. I just won't allow myself to forget what he's going through. You know what I mean? And as well as the fact that he's trying to sell a book. I won't let myself forget either one of those things. And two, look at the lay of the land, y'all. You look over at a guy like Kwame Brown, he's making a real killing out here in terms of attention, which I'm sure are opening up financial opportunities for him as well. Being extreme. Look at who our president was previously. Being extreme. There's a tone set for garnering attention for being extreme, and garnering attention for saying things that are going to leave people feeling uncomfortable. There's a market for that. And maybe Scottie senses it too. Maybe that's something also that's going on here. This Kwame Brown thing, hey, if you're a basketball player ready to let loose, there's a market out there for you for sure. So maybe that's also what's happening here. But at the end of the day, I just feel like Scottie's going about it in a way that's going to create a lot of enemies that maybe wouldn't have ever been enemies. And he's built his career and built the foundation of who people believe him to be for a long time, and to throw that away, I don't feel like he will be happy that he did that overall. I don't think that that's who he would have wanted to see himself be maybe 20 years ago when he was playing ball. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes when you go through stuff, you can throw away years and years of good reputation that you've spent all this time trying to build. You know what I mean? Just in a moment of, I'm going through it. And maybe that might be what's going on here. So what did I think of Phil Jackson? I know I didn't talk about that, but what did I think of him saying Phil Jackson was a racist? I'll be honest with you, I don't know of Phil Jackson, and I never met the man. And when it comes to stuff like this, I'm very, very hesitant, because there's two sides of the coin. When you start talking about racism and calling people racist, the other side of the coin, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of resentment, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of pressure to prove that they are not, and to say the right things after that. You can weaponize that against somebody. You know what I mean? And it's something that we need to be kind of cognizant of as well. If we have an issue with somebody, or somebody did something to us, and if we call them a racist, we do understand that now we've become the attacker. If we don't have evidence to back that up, now we're the bullies when we use it. It's not popular to say that, and it don't really feel good to say that, given that the scales are so imbalanced in how it feels to be on this end. But the reality is, you can see it. You can see it. You can back somebody all the way into a corner if you call them the racist. You can put them in a position they lose everything, and they ain't heard from again, and their reputation don't be the same forever. Like, you will turn somebody into somebody that hates you, who didn't hate you, by doing that to them. You make the enemy's army stronger, and we need to be aware of that type of stuff too. So I don't know of Phil Jackson. And I'm not going to dispute anything that Scottie Pippen's saying, nor am I going to accuse Phil Jackson anything. Where I come from as somebody who's from afar, I'm a Laker fan. And I believe that I've been shown a good display by Jeannie Buss. Jeannie Buss chose him as her dude for a very long time. I don't think she hugs up with somebody who's an openly or even closeted racist person. It's a bad display. She's not in the business of tarnishing her family name and her Laker name, and she would not associate somebody like that with herself and her father's organization. She would not do that. So that's where I come from in a space like that. That's who I believe her to be. I could be naive in that way, but I don't believe myself to be. She's shown me enough in regards to knowing at least that she's in touch with what matters to us. Now, that doesn't always have to reflect what's in a person's heart, but it does reflect what they want to continue to be as they consistently display it. She would not bring a racist into her organization. She wouldn't. Not knowing so. If she found that out, I don't know that she would be quick to tell us. I don't know if that benefits her in the organization either, but I don't see her getting that close to somebody like that. Personally, I don't see that. Also, I've seen enough of Phil Jackson to at least see how he interacts with his players. And while that Kobe situation made me feel uncomfortable, what I understood about Kobe was one of those unique personalities that could probably be motivated by that. Kobe was one of them unique personalities to where he probably wasn't going to be as angry about that as the average human being. And I think Phil Jackson understood that. I think his relationship with Kobe Bryant was unique and none of us will understand it. And I think he was pressing Kobe's button by writing that book. I said it back then when I was, 20 years old, however old I was when that happened. And I'll say it now. I don't think Phil Jackson meant anything mean by that. I think if Phil Jackson did it to somebody else, or if someone else did that to someone else, different energy. But between those two men, those two type of brains, those two scientific basketball mind geniuses, because they're both superhuman in that way, Kobe and Phil Jackson, as we know. The Zen Master versus the Black Mamba. They got, 5 rings together? Him writing a book, in my opinion, and airing Kobe out was his way of telling Kobe that he needed to make some changes. That's how I took it. That I felt like he did it out of love, to be honest. Because there was a time when Kobe wasn't in the right space. And then what happened in Denver took place, and his whole world changed. Around the same time the book came out. Around the same time. So, Phil and Kobe was tight. I know that much. Did Kobe appreciate that? No. Did Kobe turn into a better person after that? Yes. Did they end up being on the same team and coaching and playing for one another? Yes. And they won championships after that? Yes. They hugged and they was happy after that? Yes. Never heard Kobe say anything bad about Phil after that? No. Never hear Kobe saying he was a racist. Ever hear Shaq say he was a racist? Ever see Rick Fox, Derek Fisher, Robert Ory? We would have heard these things. Meta World Peace. Somebody would have said something. Somebody would have said, yo, nah, this guy ain't it. Kwame Brown himself? Nah, nobody's saying this but Scottie. So I think Scottie's perceiving it a certain way because of what happened to him, particularly in a situation where he felt it was racist. But I would tell him this, that Tony Kukoc situation, brother, Phil Jackson don't own a team, man. Phil Jackson didn't run the show to that degree. He can run it to a certain degree, but if they're going to bring somebody in like Kukoc to be the great white hope, quote unquote, if that's what he was, then the word came from on high to make sure that he got the clutch shots, bro. Not only that, but let's just look at the game itself. From what I understand, you had just missed a clutch shot before that, Scottie. I'm not going to give you 2 shots in a row to miss, man. We got a pure shooter over here who is the great white hope that we brought in here for the specific point of kind of providing you a second guy or some insurance for you or whatever. Yeah, we're going to give him the ball. And you hit the shot. You won. You should be happy. Literally, you should be happy. So this is one of those situations where I understand where Scottie's coming from because it felt a certain way. It looked a certain way. He saw the attention that Mike was getting. When Mike left, he felt like he should be getting that same attention, especially since he was an MVP candidate, if not the MVP that year, right? And, he didn't see the faith applied to him, and he saw them bringing in a great white hope. Yeah, that feels away. But I don't think that's a Phil Jackson thing, bro. You need to start looking at people above Phil Jackson. That's who you need to be looking at and saying, yo, why are y'all disrespecting me by making sure that this guy... Because that's who you need to talk to. Not an employee. Phil Jackson was an employee, bro. He had no power. He might have had some power, but not enough to make that decision ultimately. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. If that dude was put in a situation to have the last shot while you were on the team, you got to go above Phil Jackson's head with the grievances and the complaints. You can't point that at the coach, bro. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. Call him a racist. You're giving him too much power. So that's one thing I'll say. And mind you, this wasn't back in like right now where players and coaches and organizations have more power. You can have more sway, more leverage. No, back then the owners were just that. They were the owners, bro. They owned stuff. There was nobody with leverage around that. You do what they tell you to do or you go. That was the era back then. So that's even less credible to me. I just don't think that was a Phil Jackson call. I really don't. So, hey man, I pray for Scottie. I pray for his family. You know, these are the type of situations where what you say and what you do affects your kids. Now they got to go to school and hear whatever they got to hear. Now they got to answer questions, be in awkward silences and stuff like that. You just don't know what type of residual effects this will have while you're lashing out and selling books, and your kids are answering questions and getting laughed at. So just be mindful, man. Everybody, we all need to be mindful of what it is that we do and what we say and how it affects the people that we care about. If you're famous, if you have that type of sway on others, yeah, man, you mess up, everybody feel it. Everybody feel it, Scottie. So I would say just go get some healing going, man. Get your spirit right. You're headed down the wrong path. This doesn't get better. When you start lashing out, anybody, not specifically to Mr. Pippen, but anybody, when you start lashing out in the name of grief and in the name of anger, you're going to start tearing up your own stuff. It's not everybody else that your insults and all this is going to hurt. It's your reputation and how they view you and how they'll do business with you going forward. You're not always going to be grieving. You're not always going to be sad. You're not always going to be trying to fight through these different emotions. Some days shit is going to get better, and you're going to want these bridges that you're burning to be crossable. Not just for yourself, but for the other people who you'll want to do favors for, and you won't have those favors for them. This is just what it is. At some point, we got to turn the page on the pain. Let it do what it do, but then move on. Because you're allowing it to turn you into a destructive tool for your very own legacy. And that's what you're upset at. The people are playing with your legacy. Well, sir, you too are playing with your legacy. It's time to see it. My name is BDF44, and I'm out.